Halloween 2014, the day after. Take you on a quick tour of what we had going on here. You see the wind's blowing this morning, got a cold front coming in. A high of 69 today. Mommy did a lot of decorations this year. Got the scary boat driver. Some spider webs. Got the flying ghost up here. That was in Bryce's window last year. Came out of the tombstone. Here's our pumpkins that we carved. Another pumpkin over here. Alright, now let's get to the fun stuff. Oh, there's my Gru mask. I was Gru last year, or this year. So we got a few buttons here. Chris's favorite button is this button. Where is it? This button right here. It runs a solenoid behind the scenes, behind his chair, and when the kids reach for the candy, they get spooked whenever he pushes the button, which for some reason I got to remind him to do once in a while. So that's button number one. That's always a big hit with all the kids. And then the other one, my most time-consuming project this year was this nondescript cooler. And when I push the button, Dobby jumps out. The pneumatic, there's 3 pneumatic functions in there. Here you can see it's plugged in the back. And power and air. But I got a radio receiver in here whenever I push the button. In my pocket, which is not as impressive during the day, but there is a light on inside there, the black light that lights up. I'll show you more details on how that works in a minute. And then meanwhile, in the overhead here, we had this button. Nice little hand stick that I made with a button on top. And that runs this bat up in the trees. Let's see if you can see it in the video, but over yonder, there's a wheel in the tree. I borrowed it off of Bryce's bicycle. And then you follow the string, and there's the bat. And up there is a little hook device. I don't know if it'll focus on that. A little hook device that hooks the monofilament line that the bat's hanging on. And that string goes round and round. I'll show you upstairs. Up here we've got another wheel up there with a motor on it. So let me push the button. So it's loaded right now. The bat's ready to launch. And when I push the button, it releases and swings down and scares people. And it actually worked pretty good. A lot of people got spooked by that. I was afraid I might hit somebody in the face, but everybody loved it. So then the string goes around until the next, there's 4 hooks on there. The next one catches it. Where'd it go? Next one catches it again and pulls it back up till a launching point. And it trips and boom, flies down again. So there's 4 hooks on the line, and so they're close enough together that as soon as it stops swinging or is done with its flight, you push the button again and the next. There's the hook device. It's a piece of Tygon because the line was rotating as it went around. So we had to get a piece of Tygon so the rope is free to twist while it goes around. Mechanism with a drill motor on it and a skateboard wheel. Makes the string go around and around. Okay, Bryce. Had to put some foam on it to try to quiet it down. It's okay. Yeah, it was a bit noisy as you could tell, but it worked out okay. So all the stuff behind the scenes. Talking on the video, Bryce. Got a couple regulators here. One's for the blow up rubber thing in the candy box, candy bowl. And then so you get 2 different pressures. Or run the cooler at 6 DPM. I'm sorry, run the cooler at 60 psi. And inflatable rubber candy scare is running at full 100 pressure, 100 psi. And the power supply is in the box for the solenoid, 24 volt for that solenoid, and then this is the power supply that runs the drill motor. Can control the speed by changing the voltage. Least I failed to mention is the black lights. That's a big part of our effect, is the black lights in the overhead. And everything glows. Got two 4-foot bulbs there, and then two 2-footers over there. And it lights up all the spider webs, and we always dress in something white so we glow nicely. Everybody gets a kick out of the black lights, although they do attract bugs, we found out. Alright, so here's a little bit of background on how the Dobby and the cooler trick works. For those of you interested in details, we'll go through quickly how this thing is set up. You can see in the back I've got an air line and a power cord. Neighbor threw out this cooler one night, so I grabbed this old cooler. All I had to do was put some hinges on it. The cups are glued on, obviously empty, so that when the lid opens, they stay there. That was, I think, added a lot to the trick. I had to pull them off. Just use some hot glue on it. Hot glue is great for some things. Anyway, I'll do that later. And now we'll see the inside. There's the black light bolted to the top, running off AC. Had a relay in there running that. I had to put these guides in here. This was the top of Dobby's head. And then that guide indexed in here, because otherwise the air cylinder, when you pull up on it, it wants to rotate. I mean, when it normally goes by itself, it wants to rotate out of position. So I screwed these on the lid, so you can see there they line up, and that way the cylinder stayed straight. And this is what actually pushed the lid open when this cylinder came out. I'm gonna put it down on the ground here so you get a better view of it. But so I had one cylinder. Well, let's take the black fabric was in there just to cover everything up during the show. And now you can see the guts of it. I had the hands bolted to the rod, piece of PVC actually, and they went on one air function on their own. I had some guides. You can see the plywood there. I used the bandsaw to cut that shape in there so that when the cylinder came out, that was the track that it followed. The biggest problem I had with this prop was the strokes on the two cylinders. The cylinder that did the head, the pneumatic actuator, and the one that did the hands was too short. If I'd had another couple inches, I would have liked it better. So here you can see I put the electrical stuff in a bucket. My idea originally was to put dry ice in here, and I didn't want the electricals getting wet. But then in the end I decided not to put the dry ice because I wanted this thing to be nondescript. People were walking up the driveway. I didn't want them to wonder why there was fog coming out of the cooler, so I decided not to do the dry ice. But this is the air cylinder that did the jumping. This is what made the cooler tip. Just came out the bottom and made the cooler rock. You can see a meter in valve. I use those to control the speed a little bit. All three of the functions have those. You can see the one down there on the end of Dobby's head. Alright, and then the power strip, of course, it was all running off the AC. It was nice having a power strip with a switch on it, so when I wasn't using it, I could turn it off. And there you can see the valve manifold that was running the three functions. So let me take some of this out of here, and then you can see a little more detail of what all's in there. Alright, so I pulled a bucket of smarts out. There you can see the PC speakers that were making the sound. There's the other speaker, the bass box, and the other speaker. And then this was the plug that, of course, just a regular lamp that ran the black light. That was a black light. And then here you can see the bracket I made to hold Dobby's head with some Velcro. I ended up tying it on there. Velcro was kind of in the way. The plate stacked up too much. And I just bolted in a wood bulkhead there to tie everything to. So that all worked out pretty good. The cooler was really easy to work with. And then over here we've got the goodies. Again, was the valve manifold there that's run off the 24 volt relays. Actually, they're 24 volt solenoids running off the relays. And this is the 24 volt power supply that ran the valves. And then also this black cable, you can see that's put out. I jumpered this to get the 120 out. So that was the switched 120 volts AC there to power the black light. And at the command of the computer, which is over here, the Arduino stack, have a Do Mil Novo, whatever it is, Arduino on the bottom, and then a Adafruit music maker shield on top of that. And you can see the MP3 chip there, worked out really well for doing the sound. And then I just have a little prototype shield on top. This actually worked out really slick. This is a radio receiver out of a standard AC switch, remote switch. The pins lined up exactly, and there was a 5 volt load to run that, and then it had a digital out, and that's what I used to trigger this whole thing. When this is the blue line is the antenna, and it has really good range. Could go probably 40 or 50 feet with it. The only drawback was there's no filtering. Some of the, like if I used my electric drill near it or anything, it would go off. But on Friday night, Halloween, there was no issues. It didn't go off accidentally at all. So there's an overall of it. Oh, and the Dobby's head, I just poked some holes in it with my soldering iron and laced it with a shoestring. Stuffed it with paper. I had to cut this out, unfortunately, in order to make room for that shoe that you saw that was rubbing on the top of the cooler to open the cooler. It was binding on there. And then the gloves I made, I took some latex gloves and spray painted them, shoved those full of paper to make some hands. I got some people with it. I had to crank up the pressure. I had it running at about 40 psi, and it wasn't quick enough. So halfway through the night, I cranked it up to about 60 psi, so it would jump a little quicker and a little more forcefully and scare people a little better. But everybody liked it. It wasn't quite the gotcha prop that I was hoping it would be. I'm not sure why that was. It was, I guess it's not gruesome enough or big enough maybe. But anyway, Halloween 2014. We'll see about next year. See what kind of ideas we can come up for next year.